Lawyers of Reddit, who is the most freaked up person you have had to defend in court? In law school I clerked at the public defender's office. It was a great experience. I had a guy who was in jail for fricking his preteen daughter and getting her pregnant. He had sole custody of the daughter. Do you know why he had sole custody? The mother was whoring out the daughter to much older men. People are garbage. Oh, God, the poor girl. I have tons of these, but the best is woman who was charged with stuffing a stroller with items she intended to steal at a toy store. Larceny of some degree. As a side note, she was about 5 feet 4 inches tall and about 3 bills. Also a rather impressive neckbeard she played with. She had a history of this exact crime as well as a rather extensive felony history, so she was looking at significant jail prison time. She was in custody, and when I went to meet with her she demanded I bring the prosecutor into the jail to cut a deal. I explained that this prosecutor would not be interested in any deal unless she could offer something really big in an effort to manage her expectations about getting relief this way. That was a mistake. She stood up and threw her chair at me and started screaming that she was a killer. Yo, and I know tons of murderers. Motherfricker. The part that made the whiteboard at the office was when she said, well, she was in jail. I ain't going to jail. I know killers. Ain't going to jail. Period. .com. From that point forward everyone in the office used period.com to emphasize everything. She's probably an identical twin. The guilty one has the bald neck. Appointed defender for a guy accused of shooting his infant up with H when she cried. Never before or since wanted to throw a defendant to the wolves. Absolutely no remorse. Her crying would mess up his high. She just needed things like food, water, diaper change, but it was easier to just shoot her up. Not a lawyer, yet, but just this summer in Maryland a guy decided to take his sure thing acquittal and toss it out the window. In this area of Maryland stealing cars from gas stations is popular, and this exactly is what our criminal did. He stole some woman's car while she was pumping gas. Shortly thereafter, when police are talking to the woman at the same gas station, the thief drives right by in the stolen car as she's describing it, so she just points at it and says that's actually it right there. The two officers on scene decide to chase him. The problem is, their department's policies only allow chases in very limited circumstances. Generally armed crimes are the only way to get to chase a suspect. Car theft is not one of the excuses to initiate a chase. So the officers are breaking their own self-imposed rules. Our thief leads this cruiser on a chase down the highway, zipping between cars until the cruiser swerves to avoid another car, flips, throws the driver from the vehicle and kills him. The thief is eventually caught, but with evidence showing that the officers engaged in a chase they weren't allowed to begin, the guy was set to get off. Because all he had done was steal a car and commit some reckless driving offenses that were only going to get him like 6 months. Which he had basically served by the date of trial. But rather than get away with it, our thief decided to write a letter to his friend from jail asking him to kill a witness he thought might help convict him. I sat in the courtroom just facepalming as the prosecutor read from the letter. The thief went from time served to 15 years with a single sheet of paper. This makes me happy. Back in the 80s, my father defended a man who broke into his ex-girlfriend's trailer, violating a restraining order. He wanted to write her a note, but couldn't find anything to write with, so he stabbed her dog in the eye and used the blood to write it. As far as I know, the dog survived, and the man was found not guilty because of insanity. There was also this one case where his client was charged with having CP, and he had to verify the evidence. After signing about 1 million forms and getting permission from a judge, he was escorted by a police officer into a small room where he viewed the video. Yup, it was CP. It wasn't some Girls Gone Wild video where a 17-year-old lied about her age. It was straight up sodomization of infants. They were crying and everything. He told me that was the worst thing he's ever seen in his career. Dude, that is fricked up. I was a prosecutor, not a defender, but I still saw some messed up stuff. A father set his son on fire after an argument over Madden football. 2 young men, I think 19, robbed a car wash, tied up the staff and then took the money. As an afterthought, they executed all the staff, 5 people, so there wouldn't be any witnesses. Security camera was on the whole time. They got the death penalty. Man and his 2 friends, high on M, kidnapped and up-head a 15-year-old girl. They shot her in the stomach, but she didn't die right away, so they took her to a cement quarry and buried her in a hole with cement dust. Coroner said she suffocated on dust. Mother, dissatisfied that her 4-year-old wouldn't eat her slice of pizza, banged her daughter's head on the wall so hard she broke her skull in 6 places. I had a client that went on an hour-long rambling statement about conspiracies and the injustices of the system, only barely touching on the actual DUI charge we were defending. The prosecutor didn't object to any of it. He just let the crap roll, and I didn't cut him off because I had this conversation with him 20 times before in private. He wanted to state his piece against all of my warnings, so I just let him. The judge was pretty peeved and eventually cut him off. When he came back to the table, he just kept smelling this small pillow his son gave him for good luck. When the jury went back to deliberate, he asked me, "How do you think we did?" Guilty in about 4 minutes. I saw him at the jail a month later to turn himself in for an overnight, and he was telling the other inmates how much I fricked up his case. Yeah, those clients are horrible. My attempted murder client testified about how he was forced to take the law into his own hands because the justice system had failed him. Couldn't get it through his head that he was literally testifying to premeditation. That was his second defense when we had to explain to him that our state didn't recognize temporary insanity as a defense. My dad does criminal defense appeals, and his favorite client was a guy who got arrested for stealing a car. The client had broken into a house just looking to steal whatever he could find. He was wandering around grabbing stuff when he found the keys to a really nice car. I forgot what kind of car, but it was probably a Ferrari or something. So the client drops everything, goes out to the garage and takes off. For the next few weeks, the client takes the car out in the middle of the night and goes looking for cops. Once he found them, he would honk the horn, flash his lights and get their attention, then take off in a high-speed chase. He did this for a few weeks and the cops were getting really peeved, but eventually they get the helicopter on him and he wraps the car around a telephone pole. But here is where the story gets really good. One day my dad gets a call from his client, who is his prison, and the client just chats with him about the news, weather, all kinds of stuff unrelated to his case. The next day he calls back again, same unrelated stuff. Third day my dad gets another call, and after chatting for a while the client says, "I bet you are wondering why I keep calling you." My dad admits that he was kind of curious. "Well, last week there was a race riot here, so all the Mexicans, blacks, and whites are on lockdown. But I'm Native American and I get along with everybody, so there is no line at the phone, but I don't have anyone else to call." This is sad but really cute. I am a trial paralegal, but my old firm represented a property management company that was particularly slimy. A few tenants were suing the property manager because they had gotten sick from the living conditions in the property units. However, there was no record of the tenants ever reporting issues with the property units, so theoretically there was a bit of a defense for the manager. He could not fix what he did not know about. This case has been going on for a year and we discover that the manager has been hiding evidence from us. There were nearly 100 complaints from tenants. There was also even more tenants that had gotten seriously sick from the living conditions. My firm urged the manager to settle and then he was fired after the case was over. I was a document clerk at a law firm when this happened. A woman alleged that a co-worker outpaid her at the fast food establishment they both worked. As a document clerk, I did a lot of the initial fact-finding in documents, videos, photographs, and would write up a short memo to the head attorney of the case. It would make it easier for him to see the important stuff and not waste his time or the client's money. In this case there was a video that was sent in by the employer. It wasn't labeled, but I still popped it in the CD drive. I opened it up on my work computer and watched grainy sex of the plaintiff and the alleged rapist. It looked completely consensual. If anything, she initiated it. The weirdest part? At one point during the sexual act, he has her bent over next to the fryer station. She reaches into the basket, grabs a fry, and eats it while he's thrusting into her. I immediately sent the DVD to the head partner to take a look. 10 minutes later, I'm sitting in my office and hear her HA. She ate the fry. This had me laughing at my desk. A guy who thought he was the Messiah. I was alone in a room with this 6'7", 300 pounds Ricardo, with the craziest eyes you've ever seen. I've never in my life looked into someone's eyes and saw that degree of crazy, and I only had the unarmed 64-year-old Rusty the bailiff to protect me if this guy decided I was going to implant another chip in his head. That was when I began to question my life choices. I was trying to imagine a 6-foot-tall 7,300 pounds man. The guy who got caught by police carrying a TV set through the glass door he'd broken to burglarize the home, insisted on a trial rather than a generous deal, got convicted and filed a complaint with the bar association because a good lawyer would have gotten him acquitted. A good lawyer will get me off scot-free, just like in all the movies. You suck. I bet sifting through all those letters to the bar association is a boring and horrible task, but they must have a good laugh when something like this comes in. Appointed to represent indigent defendant in a DSS abuse neglect case. This one involved drug abuse. Showed to court and the caseworker is showing me her latest hair test results are off the charts. Client story: not using coke, just dating a coke dealer. Keeps it on a ledge over the bed. Must have been bumping uglies real hard and some sprinkled in her hair. I ignored the scientific argument that that's not even how a hair test works. Wouldn't have gotten me anywhere. Which sounds better, I tell her. I messed up and did some blow this weekend. Or my BF deals the stuff and railed me so hard he made it snow in my hair. Good client control. I was representing someone in child support contempt court, where people who haven't paid child support are at risk of incarceration. A guy who wasn't my client checked in and was wearing a shirt that had the silhouette of two strippers and said I support single moms. The clerk asked him, "Have you been paying your child support or is your shirt lying?" Not the most outrageous story as I'm no longer practicing in the traditional sense and never did criminal work, but as a first-year associate I was instructed by a partner in another department to defend one of his friends who was being sued for defaulting on a couple of loan agreements. My client told me, "Just drag this out as long as you can. I intend to pay the guy back, but I need time to raise the cash." We had a first appearance coming up before a judge, as kind of a case management pre-trial procedure. On the day of, my client emailed me and told me he wouldn't be attending because he had some important investment meeting to attend. Yeah, right. I went to court. The plaintiff proceeded to tell this long, drawn-out story about how he was trying to get his money back from my client while also tending to his dying, now dead, wife. He also produced a ton of extremely nasty emails sent by my client in response to the plaintiff's heartfelt pleas for the return of his money, which were all new to me. In one of the emails, which the judge read aloud, the plaintiff wrote something like, "Please, I need my money back. My wife is dying and I can't work right now." My client's response, "You want your money back? Sue me, otherwise, I'll see you in heck." I basically spent the next hour getting yelled at by the judge. This past summer I represented a man who appeared at his arraignment for DUI, wearing a giant purple Crown Royal jacket. Not a criminal defense lawyer, but I did defend a guy in a tax sale proceeding, where you don't pay your property taxes and the gov puts a lien on your house and sells it out from under you. This slimeball had managed to avoid paying any property taxes for like 10 years and avoiding a sale by shuffling the property between himself and various ex-wives and GFS. He didn't even have a somewhat sympathetic reason to not pay his taxes. That is, lost a job, health problems, unexpected expenses. He was just an alcoholic bag who didn't feel like he should have to pay taxes. Anyway, the courts finally caught up with him, served him properly, and scheduled his house for upset sale. He wanted us to go in there and put him on the stand, which I told him wouldn't help. In this type of case the only way you can stay the sale is to pay the taxes owed or show that there was a flaw in service. But he insisted and he was the client paying, so whatever. Next day he showed up to the hearing, 9 AM on a Wednesday, completely freaking reeking of vodka. I did not put him on the stand. He lost his house. Surprise surprise, he didn't pay anything on top of the small retainer he gave us. On a related note, this is why I hate working small town real estate law, and why I am thankful I'm switching to a different field and firm in a few weeks. Out of the dozens of foreclosure tax sale case I've represented in 1.5 years, maybe like 2 have been clients who have actually just hit hard times and weren't complete pieces of crap. My wife is a public defender. She used to be an assistant there. Once she had to prosecute a dwarf who was a persistent car thief. He had manufactured a set of wooden blocks for his feet and a booster seat so he could do the deed. Once had a guy who was charged with his 3D strike for child molestation. His attitude was, I may as well go away for life because I can't stop doing this, so it's better for everyone that I be in prison. How can a defense lawyer just let someone plead and take life without parole? I mean, he may have been right objectively, but that's not my role in the system. I finally got him something like 15 to life. He'll probably never get out, but at least there's a possibility. He was one sick puppy, but at least he realized it. One of my friends had to defend a cop killer in court for his first case. Entire courtroom filled with police officers. Needless to say, that was not a good start. This is actually a very important role. If he wasn't represented properly, if the defense attorney did something wrong, he could claim something down the road, or could delay the process, get a mistrial, etc. Defending him to the best of your ability is very important to making sure this guy goes away for a long time and stays there, assuming he did it. One of my good friends got to guile for CP after it came to light that the warrant used to obtain all the evidence was based on one cop's illegal search. Something about the cop opening a drawer while the other was questioning him. Not real sure. Anyway, he felt like the world's biggest C. Then a week later the dude was busted soliciting an underage prostitute, so it kinda worked itself out. Woman facing losing her child insisted I put in her statement that she was a good mother because she always made sure her baby was in a different room when she injected H. She didn't keep the kid. One client in particular stands out in my mind. Without revealing any client confidences, the allegations against him were as follows. 2 Boston police officers who were parked saw a school bus pull up to a nightclub. The doors opened and somewhere between 20 and 30 women began piling out and going into a club. As the bus pulled away from the club and tried to make a right-hand turn, it clipped and took off the front bumper of the parked cop car. A high-speed chase ensued, as fast as that can be with a school bus, resulting in my client allegedly crashing the school bus into various parked cars and into the front of a store. It turns out the bus was stolen. I got him out on bail on the condition that he go to a drug treatment center. After 30 days in the treatment center, he looked great. He was clean and sober and it looked like he was getting his act together. The cops whose car he hit thought it was the funniest case they had ever heard. They actually liked my client, even after the high-speed chase, and were laughing about how many good-looking women he piled into that bus and how nice he was when he was arrested. He pled out. At his sentencing hearing, he looked awful and was clearly strung out. He got probation on the condition that all of property damage was paid. Presumably, his family took care of that. When asked why he stole the bus, he told the judge that he was going to take it to New Hampshire and then drive it as fast as he could and crash it into deep wooded area and live in it. Even the judge didn't know what to say. I'm going to proxy for this girl who was a public defender on the capital crime team. Basically, she defended murderers. It's my first date with this girl and she's late. She shows up about 30 minutes after she was supposed to. She tells me, sorry, but one of my defendants murdered his cellmate, so I had to go to the county jail. Not only did her client murder his cellmate, but the city was going to be liable because they knew he was mentally unstable and was supposed to be in solitary confinement. I just remember it because it was an interesting way to start off a first date. You've been visited by the good policy grandpa. You will be blessed with good economics and healthcare, but only if you comment sleep well, Berno. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check out another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day, you magnificent people.